If you tell someone you're 5'9.5", you are 5'6". That's what you are. Q&A time, let's go. So it's been a while since I've done one of these. I've also changed the setup of the video just a little bit, using a different camera, hooked it all up through OBS, so it'll be a bit quicker for me to edit, and I've got the proper microphone on versus my usual, my usual DJI mics. So things are a bit different. I probably sound way better. But anyway, you're all here for Q&A, so let's get into it, shall we? I'm going to answer, I think, about 10 questions or so. So let's begin with, how on God green earth do you run all of the accounts without losing the will to live? Honestly, my friend, this is a brilliant question. So for those that don't know, that may be new, that maybe you just stumbled across the YouTube video, perhaps that don't follow me anywhere else, I have about 5 accounts on TikTok, only maybe 3 or 4 of which I actively post to most days. That combined with now this, 2 YouTube channels, in fact, plus Instagram, it is quite a lot. But here's how I try to do it is, especially with TikTok, over the course of a month, the way you get paid on TikTok varies. So towards the end of a month, you typically earn a lot less. RPMs right now, for example, I'm getting paid about half what I should be getting paid for my views. So what I do for that is I prioritize the accounts that are going to get the majority of the views earlier in the months, which is typically the gaming stuff. So the gaming stuff will front load my income for the month. And then towards the latter half of the month, I might go more in things like the fitness videos, where the money isn't necessarily directly made through videos, although it still is. But like, for example, somebody might watch this video, click the link in the description and go and buy a program for 25 quid. One person has to do that, but to earn 25 quid on TikTok, I'd need 100,000 views or so. So I make the things that are not money for views dependent later on in the month, but then also try to pre-plan ahead. So for the most part, I've been pretty bad with it for a while, to be honest, but when I was actively trying to grow the most, I had like 30 videos in my drafts on each account on any given day. And sometimes I would use schedulers. So for example, there is a social media management suite called Vista Social, not sponsored by the way. I'd love a sponsor at some point though, where you can basically, you tell it at what time per day and on what accounts you want to upload. You send the footage to the thing once it's edited, and it just uploads it when you want it to go up. Therefore, for example, with the fitness account, say I upload 3 to 5 videos a day, I can make 15 videos on a Monday, send them all to the social media management suite thing, and then just forget. So as for the will to live thing, honestly, it's harder than you might think. I have a lot of bad days. I just don't talk about it much. But anyway, moving on. Opinions on stretch marks from lifting. I'm not quite sure what you mean of opinions. Like, it doesn't really matter whether I say they're good or bad. If you've got them, you've got them. It's one of them. However, see them as something that you've earned, right? If you've managed to get stretch marks through growing muscle, well done. That is some, aside from the muscle, that is some definitive proof that you grew muscle. Think about how much work had to go in to growing those stretch marks. Also, do I have them? Yeah. So I have stretch marks sort of down my lats and in the crook of my bicep. When we grow, the majority of the time, the skin stretches from the armpit. That's why it's so incredibly common to get stretch marks there. It's been a long time since I got new stretch marks. When my stretch marks were at their worst was when I first crossed over into the 200-pound range of body weight. So, for example, I am about 5'9.5". I know I always round down though, because lads, if you tell someone you're 5'9.5", you are 5'6". That's what you are. You can't say 5'9.5". You sound small. You have to say 5'9", because at least then you're honest. But I am genuinely 5'9.5". Anyway, so when I first got into the 200-pound body weight range at 5'9.5", that was about when my body started getting a bit complainy at me. Until then, I'd probably been in the 180 mark for absolutely ages. But it's one of them where there's not a lot you can do. But in reality, they fade. Like when you first get them, they're fresh and red and it can be horrible to look at. But once you've had them for literally years, you barely even see them. Like, I remember the last time I even noticed mine, for example. What video series blew up my TikTok and how long did it take you to get me to that video series? Okay, so started making videos in December 2020. Good Lord, that's 4 years ago this year. I'm an old man when it comes to that platform, I swear to God. I think February, I had about 10,000 followers, but none of my videos really hit it big, as it were. Like I was pushing a couple of thousand views, if that. But what I would do is I'd be replying to every question, every comment with a video and just farming it that way. The majority of the way that I made money in those early days, because TikTok didn't pay for views really until like the last few months, was online coaching. So I built up by like 30,000 followers, I had like a full cook and couldn't take on anymore. By the time I had like 250,000 followers, I basically had stopped coaching altogether. Just had like my legacy could have been around for ages. But In terms of how I got from like that 10, 30K up to the hundreds of thousands that I'm at, it was the Stitch videos, honestly. Back in the day, me and JPG, we would Stitch videos constantly and they would blow up. I remember there was a time where I couldn't, no matter what I did, get less than like 50,000 views. Hey, I'd get thousands of followers for a bit. It was a pretty mental time. I think it was like 2021 that I blew up. I'm pretty sure I went from like 50,000 followers, like 250,000 followers over the space of a few months. And it really was life changing. Like if it was TikTok, I wouldn't be in the house that I'm in now, really. Although it comes with a downside, right? When you have a series like that blow up and that be the reason why lots of people follow and watch you, anytime you do anything that isn't that, you often risk not getting the views that you otherwise wanted. It's a problem. For example, to this day, I can't really just pick up my phone, talk to the camera like that and have the video do brilliantly by default, whereas I can do a stitch and still get decent views pretty much every time. But I wished I didn't have to do the stitches all the time to rely on those views, because then I'm having to find videos to stitch, which is an extra element of work, and there's not always something worth stitching or something that I can find worth stitching. Anyway, on to the next. Okay, this question comes from TikTok itself, and I'm going to try and be as nice as I can, but I want understanding. Truly, I'm not being mean here, but we'll read it out. What happens if you stop taking creatine, if you took creatine for months, but then stopped for months? Okay, so when I make videos about fitness, I always try to help people come to conclusions themselves so that they understand the thought process to put into things so that they can understand and justify answers rather than just giving them the answers. If I just give you the answer here, it's very simple. If creatine increases your ability to train a little bit harder, maybe get an extra rep or two, hold intramuscular water or intracellular water, you lose that ability. If you take a thing and then you stop taking a thing, you lose the thing gave you. That's simple. But rather than giving that straight answer, with everything on fitness, I try and feed a man to water. Give a man a fish, he's got a fish. Teach a man to fish, he's got fish for the rest of his life. It's one of them. I'm sure that's not the analogy, but you know what I mean. When I see questions like this one, especially with it having a few likes, if this were me and I was to ask this question, I would apply a thought process to it. I'd be like, right, what would happen in anything else that I took? If I was to get drunk for the next few days and then stop drinking, what would happen? You'd be like, oh, you wouldn't be drunk anymore. Exactly. You know what I mean? I think the thing on TikTok where sort of multiple step thought processes just sort of left the building. I don't know. I'm trying to be nice, but I do think that this is the sort of question that is very easily answered with just like a little bit of thought, perhaps. Anyway, moving on to the next. Oh, this is a good one. Best approach for working in the exercise science industry. Love the content, so thank you. Don't. That's not money is made. I regret early days of TikTok where I'd bang on about biomechanics and the science of training, because all I think it did was serve to confuse people. To this day, there are so many kids that don't know how to train hard, that are worried about the biomechanics of the exercises they're choosing to use. It happens on my comments day in, day out, people arguing with each other over this versus that, when neither of the two that are arguing are in a position where they need to be worried about that, because I'm not even in a position where I really need to be worried about that. I used to really enjoy talking about it, and that's why I brought it to TikTok, was because I enjoyed talking about it. It was fun for me. I liked it, right? But because those videos blew up and it got people interested, it also distracted people, right? I always understood that this is fun to learn about and know, but none of it matters absent hard training. This was all stuff that like you didn't or find out existed until you'd already been training for years. But now because of TikTok, because of social media and all these videos blowing up about biomechanics and things like that, it's way more thrown in the face of people that have just started lifting. There are guys on YouTube with millions of followers in the fitness industry that had never heard the word resistance profile until they'd already become a millionaire from fitness. I won't name names, but there's loads of them. This is you don't need to ever hear the word resistance profile to be successful in fitness, whether it be like physically into how you look and train, or like financially into how successful your business is. I really wouldn't worry about exercise science industry at all. If you want to make money from fitness, here's what you do. You go learn how to lose fat, and then you go learn how to communicate as best possible with middle-aged people that need to lose fat, because that is a population of people that is impossible to exhaust. There are so many people in that population that you can help that you will always be able to earn money. because getting that result is pretty simple. Like anyone that's in this world, like I guarantee the dude asking this question, where do I need to point? The dude asking this question, he knows how to like guarantee it. Because if he's worried about exercise science, he should understand how to lose fat, right? So all he has to do is learn how to market towards people that need to lose fat or maybe build a little bit of muscle. And then he's got a target audience there forever that he can always help out and make money. Because that's poor, right? People get into coaching and personal training thinking they're going to train the next Mr. Olympia. That isn't a successful business model. How many potential Olympians are out there on the street versus how many middle-aged people are there that need to lose weight? Hundreds of thousands. You need, what, if 30 people pay you £150 a month to be your client, you have £4,500 a month there from that. If you just help those 30 people lose some fat, keep doing that forever. There's your career. This is really a topic I could make a whole video about though. But yeah, when it comes to exercise science sort of things, I get being passionate about it because I used to be. I'm really not anymore because I think that TikTok ruined it. But here's it for you. Obviously, having the followers I have in fitness has meant that and being in this for so long means that I have known and spoken to all of the other guys that have a lot of followers in fitness. Every one of us that used to say the word optimal, we all regret that because it took on a meaning that we didn't mean it to take, and people forgot what really matters, the hard training. We didn't for it to happen, but it did. And yeah, everybody sciencey as we used to be. Because in reality, what I used to talk about wasn't that sciencey. It really wasn't. It was very basic stuff. Like understanding a moment arm is incredibly basic versus the stuff like Coach Kassem and those guys put out. If you want your education in terms of biomechanics, that's where you go. It was never TikTok, not really. Anyway, on to the next. What made me get up and go to the gym for the first time? Okay. People that have followed me for a long time have probably seen the photo that I'm about to put up a million times, but I'll throw a photo up of what I looked like at like 16 here somewhere. I suppose if that's the question, I'll throw it there. Future Kale in editing, put a picture there, yeah? Anyway, I was basically small and fat for my entire childhood and had no confidence, wasn't very good at speaking to people. I was a bit weird. Anyone that has seen my TikToks about my dad knows that I didn't exactly have a normal upbringing either. But basically, I didn't want to look the way that I looked anymore. And I got to fitness because of YouTube very early on. Like I remember the old days, the Mike Chang with a towel, Brandon Carter, the Hodge twins, Elliot Hulse. Like I think we're probably talking like 2010 or so. I was pretty young enough that I couldn't go to a gym because I had to be 16, and I wanted like a pull-up bar for the room. Maybe I could do something with that. And then my mom brought me a gym membership when I was 16 to just this little like health club that was not very good, but it was where I began. I'm 26 in a few months for reference, so it's been nearly a decade since I began going to the gym. But all my life, I looked up to guys like Jean-Claude Van Damme and how he looked in Kickboxer and Bloodsport, and obviously Arnold in Terminator and Rocky and Stallone, and all of the people in Dragon Ball Z. Like I was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z. Fun fact, I credit Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 1's character illustrations and character biographies for teaching me how to read when I was a kid. I think I was like 6 or 7 when it came out, maybe 8. And I remember like reading all the illustrations in that because at the time I had no way of watching the anime. I was just experiencing it through games. So I'd read all of them. And I remember like my mom complained that I'd swallowed a dictionary or something like that because my vocabulary increased. But the only reading I was doing was these character biographies. But the way all of the Z fighters looked and all the Saiyans, it always used to inspire me. And just I wanted that. Still hasn't happened, but it didn't stop me trying for most of my life now. Okay, this might be the last question. I'm not sure if there was any more. Do you think periodizing your training for hypertrophy is even a thing worth doing? I think if you're somebody that's obsessed with the gym, yes. But for most people, probably not. Reason being, most normal people, so probably people watching this, life periodizes it for you. So for example, deload weeks, yeah? Most people don't plan a deload week because at some point life will force you to have one. Whether you go on holiday, whether it be a birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving. A few times every few months, there will be reasons, for whatever reason it might be, why you don't take the gym as seriously as you otherwise were, because at the end of the day, you don't have to. Gym probably isn't your career. It probably isn't something that you revolve your entire life around. Or if it is, you're probably on the younger side and at one day it won't. If you're currently 16, then yeah, you probably don't got much going on. You might have some school, maybe a girlfriend, but gym is probably a big part of your life right now, especially if you're watching this video. But by the time you're in your 20s and maybe you've got like a mortgage and kids, and if gym isn't your job by that point, you probably just go to train, to get the results, to feel good about it, to go home, and you don't think about it too much outside of that. I think most people are just better suited, just listening to their body and learning how. If you're just overly wrecked, have a day off. If you're not, go in and train hard. If you're progressing, cool. Maybe you can add a little bit more volume through extra sets, and those don't progress, don't need it. If you're currently not progressing, but you want to be, maybe you're already doing too much volume, maybe take a set out, see if that helps. It comes back to that creatine question, where I think that sort of a multi-step thought process of like problem solving, most normal people's problems in almost anything in life really, once you troubleshoot stuff, is if I'm not getting X result, what variables can I adjust? What outcome can I expect? Just apply that sort of system of thinking to like a lot of things in life, and you end up where you want to be, I suppose. Right, this one I think might be the last question. I've left it till last because I don't want people to copy me. How aggressive was I with calories on my mini cut? So when I diet hard. I don't want to diet for very long, ever. And dieting has always been a skill of mine. I'm really good at dropping weight fast. My body is very responsive to losing weight. On the flip side, though, it's also very responsive to gaining weight, and not in a good way. I can get fat very easily, but at the same note, I also seem to be able to lose fat very easily. People like to say a bit of the tism, it might be, but I sort of have a switch that I can flick in my head where I can turn off my appetite. So for example, right now I'm eating twice a day. I have something when I wake up, and then I eat some dinner with my girlfriend, and that is it. I will every day go from 7 p.m. until about 2 p.m. the next day with no food. Because I wake up like 1, I eat like 2, and then 7 we eat dinner. When I'm dieting, it's pretty common for me to lose 3 to 5 pounds a week minimum. And to make that happen, yeah, my calories have to be really low. Last year, when I was dieting for 60 pounds off, I put an exercise bike behind me back here and I'd do an hour and a half or so on that every single day, as well as eating maybe 1,100, 1,200 calories a day. Like truly not a lot, for sure. And last year I definitely risked muscle loss because of how long that diet was. But this one I really am not concerned about it, because still training hard, still eating as much protein as I can given the calories, just protein chili. But also the fact that I'm only dieting for 6 weeks. Like in reality, I think it is 6 weeks today that I've been dieting, and I'm 21 pounds down, which averages about 3 pounds a week, which means my deficit a day has got to be like 1,500 calories, something like that. I think the math works out to. I don't worry about it like that. I don't try and do the math on it. I just pull calories down until the scale is dropping. Like pretty much I wake up to a new low. The reason that I left it this late in the video is because you shouldn't copy me. If it's your first diet, doing what I'm doing is stupid, because you won't stick to it. You'll end up binging and you'll feel awful for it. I do this knowing how much weight I'm going to lose, knowing that I'm going to go back to a different way of eating. I'm not trying to make this sustainable. I'm just opening up a route for being able to progress my body weight again at some point soon. Most people, again, bringing back to that guy that should just focus on helping people lose weight because that's the easiest people to market to. When you help those people lose weight, you're trying to instill habits in them that make sure they're able to then keep that weight off forever, you know? You're trying to just teach them something, not just get the weight off them now, you're trying to help them keep it off. So putting your average, if a normal person who needed to lose weight did what I'm doing now or what I did last year when it comes to dieting, they'd feel awful, they probably wouldn't stick to it. And once it's done and they went back to the way they were eating, they'd just get fat again. So it's not helpful. This is why it's so incredibly specific to the person. I'm able to diet like this because it's just something I can do. I wouldn't recommend it for the majority of people. A slower, steadier, more, or I don't want to say sustainable approach, but sustainable for a normal person for sure, is a better approach to take. Anyway, this video is starting to drag on a little bit now at 20 minutes. Well, it's before me cutting out any pauses. Probably a little bit less than 20 minutes when we're done. If you guys watch this far into the video below, comment down below. 5 foot is short, because maybe that'll incite people to argue with you and then that'll boost my engagement. I don't know. And if you haven't already liked the video and if you've not subscribed, you better. So, see you in a bit.